You have an interesting task here. First of all, it's got to be really cool. I mean, you already worked with Couture in the past, but right. Mark Coleman is an absolute legend. You know, we're just watching you work out with him. What's it like working with a guy like that and bringing fresh ideas and keeping him motivated?
Well, you know, I've worked with a lot of great fighters in the sport. I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. Mark Coleman, I've said it before many times, he's my favorite guy to work with of all the guys that are at that top echelon level. So he's got the greatest stories. He works real hard, and he's got so much potential. He's never even had, you know, pulled out of him. You know, really, I'm the first coach he's ever had outside of his wrestling coaches. So it's a lot of fun. But I mean, it's a bit. There's obstacles along the way. Let's put it that way.
Okay, like he seems a little grumpy at times. Like he's a guy who, just from the outside, seems a bit hard-headed. And you know, you're trying to break like 20 years of different habits from the wrestling to kind of just going on natural talent when he was in Japan.
You know, a lot of it is Mark is helped me as a coach, because if I can deal with Mark, I can deal with anybody in the sport. He's got his own certain way. But the thing that I really respect about Mark in that is that he lets me know where he's at in the training. You know, he's obviously, you know, an older fighter. He has to listen to his body, and he knows when to pick it up and when to slow it down a little bit. So it's good for me as a coach to learn that side of it. And I'll tell you, hasn't been a day he's missed a training, and there hasn't been a day that he's left early.
All right. Biggest thing with Mark, to me, would be conditioning at his age. He was much better the second fight in UFC against Bonner. You know, he actually, I think, wore down Bonner. So how is the conditioning? And also, kind of, I think the thing that doesn't get covered much is the fact that Mark can wear on other guys with his wrestling.
Right. Well, I think the big thing is, like I said before, is he's never really had anybody that's been a specific coach. You know, he had Team Hammerhouse, but they were training partners, you know, and they did great for what they did. I mean, Mark Coleman is Mark Coleman. There's not too many people I would ever put ahead of him. So for the fact that, you know, Shogun fight, he never even had a camp. I don't think he barely had a day of training. I started working together with him with the Stephan Bonner fight. We did great. And it was a good step up. We know we trust each other. We have confidence in each other, and I think that, you know, the sky's the limit with him.
All right. How much does it matter to him? Number one, fighting Couture. Number two, main event.
Well, both Mark Coleman and I respect Randy in the utmost. You know, he's a great guy. We know that, and he's done so much for the sport. And for me, I guess as a coach, he's done a great amount for me to build my name and recognition. So we go in there just thinking about this. You know. It's the first time ever two Hall of Famers at the UFC get to fight each other. It's a main event. It's Mandalay Bay, and it's Super Bowl weekend. You know, how could we pass this chance up? And you know, it's going to be a great fight.
All right. That said, you were with Couture for a long time, so you have mixed emotions?
You know, in the beginning, I didn't really know if I wanted to get involved because of, you know, the politics and stuff that seems to follow our sport with the way some of the fans are and the way some of the media follows it. But, you know, I look at it the same way Randy does. It's a business, you know, and he has his coaches. I'm not one of them. I'm not on the payroll. And this is what I do for a living. If I want to feed my family, I got to train people. Mark Coleman asked me. He trusts me. And, once again, how could I turn down a fight like this? You know, this is what I tell everybody. It's a video game fight. It's if you're sitting at home and you have, you know, a video game with all kinds of characters from the UFC to play, you know, this is the two guys I'd pick to play against. You know, it's a lot of fun. So I got to be there.
Do you feel like all that time working with him, you have an edge?
I think that I know a few things, but it's a fight, and Randy Couture is always more than prepared for every fight. He's very good at game plans. You know, there's going to be things I know, and there's going to be things that I think Randy will be able to beat us on. But once we walk in that cage, just like any other fight, we'll roll the dice and make sure we're in great shape, and hopefully we got just a little bit better game plan.
All right. Couple of things I noticed, and I think in a lot of ways the media and the fans are kind of afraid to criticize Randy. But last two fights, there were some holes. Number one, I thought against Nog, and I know Nog's a much bigger guy, but Nog did get him down to the ground. And secondly, I thought Randy was he was hit a lot. Right. So I thought he was a little easier to hit maybe than we've seen in the past. Is that something you're noticing? Is that something you can take advantage of? Or is that Nog?
I see a difference in Randy, just like everybody else, you know, and as much as it hurts me to say that, I obviously do. And the one thing I do tell everybody, though, is everybody's like, well, you know, Randy gets knocked down a lot. He's got that potential to be knocked out any time. But the one thing that Randy does is he gets himself in better shape than most 19 and 20-year-olds, and that's why he recovers so well. So we can't just look to, you know, knock him down, he's not going to get back up. Randy is that guy, so we have to be prepared for that. Do I think that there's holes in his boxing? Absolutely. But, I mean, he can look at us the same way. So I think that Mark Coleman has one hell of a chin, though, and we saw that with Shogun. And I think that Randy's is a little bit questionable now.
All right. from the grappling standpoint. Maybe not your expertise, but Brandon Vera did a pretty good job. I thought he stymied him most times. I actually thought he probably should have got benefit more on the scoreboard than he did against a guy like Coleman. I mean, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen when these two guys collide? I mean, is someone going to have an advantage? Will there be takedowns?
Well, if you throw the striking out, you've got a great Greco-Roman wrestler versus a great freestyle wrestler. It's on paper. It's going to be an awesome matchup. So the one thing is the Greco, you got to punch your way in to get to those underhooks and use that Greco-Roman. Another thing is on the other side of it, we have to use our setups, our kicks, and our punches to be able to set up those shots from the outside with Coleman. So again, stylistically, it's going to be a great match, and they're both great at their game. I think that they're the best at what they do in MMA as far as freestyle and Greco. And when we compare their ages and their physique and the way the time they've been through in fights and wars, we're going to both be there.
Now this old relationship kind of changing with Couture, where you're going to have trainers go against guys that they once trained. This is going to become commonplace in MMA. I mean, it's pretty commonplace in boxing, especially here in Vegas. It's nuts as you go around and you see guys switching gyms, looking for fresh starts. This is going to be a reality, and you guys may handle it like it's a business. I don't know if everyone else is going to handle it. I think people are going to start taking this stuff personally.
Oh, absolutely, it's gonna be like that. And I think Randy and I have both probably, on separate sides of the fence here, been pushed that way throughout the last 3 months of me leaving Couture's and starting Team Tompkins. But all I can do, speak for myself, and I try to be as professional as I can in the sport and be a good person and respect the people around me. And you know what? There's no question that Randy Couture's like that. He's the one who's wrote the book on that.